All right, checking in at number 4 of our top 10 tight ends in college football heading into the 2024 season is Caden Prieskorn from Ole Miss. Dalton, what do you love the most about Prieskorn's game?
Hands, hands, hands. Max, he's got hands for days. He's only got 2 drops in each of the last 2 seasons, and you just see he's super, super reliable, especially down the seam, and he catches everything. You saw it with 3 one-handed catches against Penn State among his 10
Don't
receptions.
have to bring it
Hate to
up.
keep bringing it up. Hate to keep bringing it up, but it was such an incredible game, right? He was the best player on the field, and you've just got a guy who got really hot down the stretch too when he got healthy, right? He was struggling with a knee injury earlier in the year, but from week 8 to the end of the season, he was 3rd in the nation in yards and 11th in receiving grade. You can see what this guy can do when he's healthy, and I think that even reflects in his game athleticism score. 2022, he was an 84.7, which is a really solid athlete. Last year, a 62.3, but I think that was in part hindered because as he was coming back early on, especially like weeks 4 through 7 from his injury, you could tell he was slowed down a bit. When he got healthy later in the year, he gave Ole Miss a real threat down the middle of the field. And that's important because Lane Kiffin, especially off his play action schemes, likes to throw outside the numbers. We talked in our wide receiver rankings about Trey Harris being the big winner outside the numbers and Jackson Dart throwing really well outside the numbers. Caden Prieskorn gives them a really reliable threat in the middle with fantastic hands, a 99 intermediate receiving grade that was 6th best in the country. Not the best athlete in the world, not a lot of yards after catch, but when you talk about ripping it into those windows down the middle of the field, Prieskorn's going to catch the football and he's going to make big plays for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was truly one of the best tight ends in the country once he came back from his knee injury. He missed the first 3 games of the season with a knee injury, came back, had 449 receiving yards, 9th most among all tight ends from week 4 on. He was really, really, really good. And since 2022, when he was at Memphis, he was such a coveted player in the transfer portal. He was one of the best tight ends in the country at Memphis as well. But since 2022, so over the last 2 years, he has 1,051 receiving yards and 527 yards after the catch. Each of those metrics are 4th in the country for tight ends as well. So, like you mentioned, that Penn State game, man, he had 10 catches on 11 targets for 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, a few unbelievable grabs in that game. He was 5 for 5 in contested targets last year, caught all 5 in contested catch situations in 2023, and he's 7 for 10 over the last 2 years as well. And like you mentioned before, he has a less than a 5% drop rate over the last 2 years too. So he's got great hands at the tight end position as well. 91st percentile separation rate at about 80%. So he's a pretty good separator, even though he's not an elite athlete too. So yeah, Caden Prieskorn, really, really good tight end. And I think another great weapon for Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart in that Ole Miss offense. That Ole Miss offense can be one of the best in the country, and having one of the best tight ends in the country, and Caden Prieskorn is a big reason for that. What are some of the negatives, though, Dalton, that you see with Caden Prieskorn?
I just think we need to see a continuation of what we saw at the end of last year and we've seen in the past. When he's healthy, there is a more diverse route tree in his game. Last year, a lot of his production came down the middle of the field, and I think there's more to his route running if he's healthy. And we mentioned he's had a better game athleticism score in 2022. He has the ability to run more outbreaking routes, right? Deep outs and corners and things of that nature, even getting across the field, like crossing routes and catching it on the opposite side of the field. He just has to stay healthy because when Lane Kiffin really got a feel for what this guy could do down the stretch, he became a big-time weapon, more so than just running up the seam and catching balls over guys kind of on the rebound sort of thing. It's just more diversity, right? He has a decent amount of yards after catch to his game when he's healthy, but to me, I think he would excel with a more diverse route tree. He's always going to have plays up the seam, always. He's got length. He's got hands. He's taller than everybody who's going to defend him. He's going to have that ability. I think outside of maybe Mitchell Evans, he might be the best seam threat in the country right now. But Prieskorn has the ability to run more routes. We saw it at the end of last year. If he's healthy for a full season, he can be a really, really diverse weapon in that offense down the field, especially in the intermediate parts of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big reason for that, not running a diverse route tree, kind of became a little bit predictable at times last year, right? And he was in the 0th percentile for tight ends over the last 2 years in separation percentage against single coverage. So he had 16 targets over the last 2 years against single coverage, and only 4 of them was he charted as open. So a 25% open target rate against single coverage, which, like I said, is in the 0th percentile as well. Not a guy who's really used too much down the field. He's in the 25th percentile over the last 2 years in terms of average at the target, about 8 yards downfield too. So want to see that go up a little bit next year. Hopefully they could use him a little bit more downfield. And I think he's an okay run blocker. I'm not going to say he's a bad run blocker. He's an okay run blocker. He was 94th in the country in run blocking grade last year. Out of about 206 tight ends in the country. So again, like a little bit above average, about average as a run blocker, but nothing special either. But yeah, like I said before, though, Caden Prieskorn is a really, really unbelievable hands. He's been a really productive player over the last 2 years, and he should be in his 2nd year now at Ole Miss. So Caden Prieskorn, our number 4 tight end in college football heading into the 2024 season.